All right. Here we go. Hey, Jennifer. Let's see. Jennifer, do you want to come on? We got 5 people in here. Let's see. We got Emily. What's going on, Emily Madison? You want to come on screen with me? Eric Hypes, Jenny, Jennifer. Let me play a little intro, and you guys let me know in Messenger in the Zoom if you want to come on screen with me, and I'll send you. I'll pull you up. All right, un momento. Let's see here. Ready? Sure. This is Tom Bear and Romeo Barron freestyle at the Soulogy Soul Gathering in Sedona. I think this past weekend.
Yesu hayalan disekeyalan Jalhan tele koto haishatunu Jelaran tele tele tubra isyana Nandele tele tubra Enandele kedere shutura yalerande Enandandele tele tubra isyake esyana Yanandele tele surha anihekeda Nandele surhana Yarandur Rayanan Delete Surra Yanhan Eshan Ehutu Vayanan Hekega Yan Eshan Ehutu Rani Hekega Yarandur Rani Hekena Yarani Vayanania Yarani Vayanani Hekega Yan Hietu Yanana Yan Henu Yanani Shatan Duagayaran Eran Warayanan Delegate Sutur Yananan Ehayai Wayanan Delegate Yana Yan Yetu Yane Hedena Yane Hetu Hayaran Delegate Ya Yan Yetu Nanan Nan Delegate Hayari Shatenemana Elan Duakayari Shatenan Ilandu hakai hekaya, ilandu haihya nihetu hana, yar etu yar ekyanane, yar etu tu haihyana. Irilanan ur kayadaran dilese tu hayanan disete kayadana hika. Irilan ur kayadan, yar handile tsun uragan dilete hekyan disetenan, yar handile keleke shanan teheke yar kyane. Ilandur kayaran delete yan, Elandur kayaran delete seti yan neke, Yar yani hunun hayanan dina, Elandur hanandi yanan delete seti yana, Yelan rahi hekaya, Ilandur yaya, Yarhandur haya, Eyaya. Ihonanan hikaya, Ihoyanan hikaya yetu hayana, Ihida, Ihiyayanan yetu haya, Yan hete sutu hayayan hekaya, Shantu hayana, Shantu hayare shatane hikaya, Ile shantanan hikayana, Ile haka ihokayanan hikayana, Ile hikayani hutu, Unun hananan miliki hikaya, Idan hanani shatana, Yaran heke sotun hayanan heke yana, Iridan hake yari shatanan tuayara, Yare uyana, Yare tu yararan lekiritu, Inam lekiritu yaran, Iran yaran leke, Yaran yari yara, Yeru Rayali Sitina, Uriana, Uriani Shatana, Uriani Yanezu, Enani Yanezu to Yanane, Enan Legate Yari Shatene Sutuna, Enan Legate to Yaran, Enan Legate to Rayan City.
in Sedona.
All right. Jake said he didn't have the link. Somebody's put the link up. Anybody wants to come in this on camera with me? Come in the studio. Let's have a conversation. Let's get 2 or 3 people up here with myself, and we'll have a conversation about what's going on. Let me put the link onto the comments. All right. So if you want to come on camera, just click the Zoom link. There it is. And send me a message in the Zoom room chat. Tell me you want to come up on the screen. Let me see if I can. All right. See if I can. No, won't let me. All right. Here we go. All right. We got 2 people raising their hands. Jennifer and Eric, do you guys want to come on? Click the chat and let me know you want to come on, because I don't know if a hand raise means that you want to come on. Good to see everybody. Hey, Jake, did you want to come on? Just put a message in the chat if you want to come on. Here we go. All right, Jennifer, I can come on. How do I come on? Geraldine. Okay, so hang on. We're going to have Geraldine and we're going to have Jennifer Sampson. Both of them coming on. Let's see here. Anybody else? Let's see who else we got. Jake. Yeah, no rush. Let's start with these two ladies we've never met before. So let's see, Jennifer. Just here we go. And Geraldine. Here we go. All right. We'll bring you up in a little bit, Jake. There's Jennifer and Geraldine. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Who am I talking to? I see a picture of Geraldine. Do you guys want to come on camera, or do you just want to be anonymous?
How do I do that?
Here,
I
let me
can come
send
on
you
camera. I'm happy to come on
let me send
camera.
you okay, I sent you okay, Jake. Give us a second, Jake. I'm going to bring you up here in a little bit. Let's get some people on here. Hey, Jennifer, what's happening?
Hi, guys.
And Geraldine, is that right? Is that your
That's
name?
right.
Geraldine?
That's me.
Okay, well, hang on a second. I got 2 more. Eric Hypes. Okay,
I got some love.
hang on. Let me get Eric Hypes in here. One more second. I want to get some new faces in here. Excuse me. All right, let's see. One more, and then Jake, you be on standby. We're going to run for a while, so just hang out. Let's see. There he is. All right, let me unmute him. And let me send him a note to start his video. Geraldine, Jennifer, and Eric. Eric, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can
Eric,
you hear me?
Oh, there you are. There we
I
go.
can't see
Right
everyone.
on.
Hang on. Oh, there you
You
go.
can't see anyone?
I
I
can
can
see
see
you.
you.
We can see you. Oh,
Hey.
we can see everybody. So we're just going to have we're just going to have a conversation, as we always do, a conscious conversation. It's a pleasure to share space with the 3 of you. We'll bring Jake in and maybe 1 or 2 other people here in a little bit. Yeah, so I don't know. Let's start with Geraldine, and if you want to just give us a little background on yourself. You know the famous question is when you woke up, but you can just say whatever you want to say.
Still waking
We'll go
up.
to Jennifer. Yeah, he's still waking up. Ain't that the truth? After I saw a post by our beloved sister Amanda Lawrence, which would have been 5 hours ago, and she said it's the biggest wave yet ever, and her intel is usually pretty good. So I think there's a lot of energy coming in today, no doubt. What about how about you, Geraldine?
Yeah, so I've been on a kind of searching journey for over 10 years, and I can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Okay, so I've been sort of searching for the truth, as I called it, for more than 10 years. I work in a very corporate job, right? I'm a lawyer, and I've been trying to balance that that part of my life with the part of my life that's going, this isn't right, you know, what's going on under the surface. And so I started on this whole journey of reading as far and wide as I could, ended up reading a lot of channeled material and so on, right? And all the time I was doing this job of mine, and I'm still doing it. But in the meantime, I've gone, I feel deeper and deeper and deeper into beneath the surface. About 2 years ago, I went to Peru and I did ayahuasca, and I held people that kind of blew some doors open, and it really was about seeking purpose. That was the intention I had when I went to Peru, and that was the intention that I presented to ayahuasca. And one thing that is said about ayahuasca is that if you set your intention clearly and purely and humbly, she will answer it, right? And she did.
Yeah.
I'm sure she did.
she was pretty. She was as clear as I was prepared for. Okay, so she didn't really kind of. Some people have very, very intense ayahuasca ceremonies where they really are faced with a lot of their dark fears and a lot of negative energy is expelled. I'd done a bit of work going into that whole process, and I think I held back a little bit, so she didn't really put me through the ringer. But what she did was she allowed another energy to come through in the most significant ceremony that I had, and she really sat back during that ceremony, and I was quite well under because I'd taken probably the biggest dose of ayahuasca in that period of time in the 12 days I was there. And this energy came through. I've never had any sort of visions or any messages or any interaction beyond the veil. So that was the first time that something came through that was really obviously from somewhere else, right? And it started communicating with me and basically saying, this is you've kind of come here for a job, and showed me that I'd come here with somebody else who's very important to me in my life. And they said you're working with him to bring him into his power, and the way forward is to rely on your intuition, right? When you get back home, you'll find that things are relatively easy in your job, which I think to the powers on the other side of the veil, what's relatively easy isn't that easy to us. So I still found that
I don't think you're going to get. I don't think you're.
No.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get a whole lot of argument from your brothers and sisters out here.
Yeah.
That's a
So
couple of
anyway,
interesting
cut a long
subjects. I want
story
to come
short,
back.
that was the path. I got back home, and yes, there were struggles, but that really motivated me to get to the next level, right? It was in the months after that I really learned about service to others. So I re-engineered what I do towards serving others, turned my job into working really more for the collective, even though it's been tricky. And I realized that there was something deeper. A couple of other things happened that were quite significant to me in my life that made me realize this was every time that I felt like I was getting off the path, something would happen and it would put me back on the path. And I had to really tune into whatever I'd connected with in Peru, clear that channel as much as I could, and understand what it was that was being told to me, manifesting as a sort of catalyst, right? And so through that kind of trial and error, and really through really relying on intuition, I've come to realize that it's part of the ascension path. And coming on to like connecting with what you're doing, Todd and Amanda Lawrence, and some of your other guests has been so helpful. in tuning me further to what it is that I'm here to do. It's been a tremendous ride, still going.
I want to come back to that. I don't normally take notes, but I can feel the synchronicity and energy of this particular broadcast. Jake, sit tight. We're going to be here, I would imagine, an hour to 2 hours. But anyway, I want to come back to some of the subjects, but I'm going to bring them up just not for everyone to talk about them. I want everyone, Eric and Jennifer. You'll have a go here in just a second, whatever you want to talk about. But she brought up not the exact words, but she talked about this partner she was with, or was told that she was with, and is with in some capacity. That brings up the multiple meaning, at least a double entendre, at a minimum, of sacred union, divine consorts, divine partnerships. Some people call them twin flames, whatever. Labels don't mean anything. She also brought up shadows, which I think is a really important subject. Service to others in a higher awareness type of frequency, and going back to the intel that she got from Mother Ayahuasca, the mission or the purpose or the whatever you want to call it. I could call it something, but it would be some people might get upset. But anyway, so Jennifer, we haven't seen you in a while. What's been happening? What do you got to say? Just in the short, get this little conversation going. But
well, I'm thinking about the same thing at the moment in relation to service to others, and also your own connection to spirit, and basically the embodiment of why we're here. The whole lot of that is just, it's one. And so as each thing feeds off each other, so I think that your shadow self, as we always all know, is the greatest grounding, and it's the dark matter. The dark matter in the universe is actually 80% of everything. So it's the one that kickstarts life. It's got everything in it. And I think I've always been okay with it. I think it's awesome. And being a person that sees the light in everybody, you also now see the polarities and you see the dark, because you've done so much, work. And I mean, I'm a mum of 6 kids, so you got to be in tune anyway. But I feel as though that, it's not just waking up, it's growing up.
Yes.
I think that, I think we're all growing up. There's there's no more. I mean, the ego is, if you think about it, it's constructed the fact of just in the past 60 to 70 years, we have gone through such a huge terminus event for Mother Earth. And we have, even the status quo of having a car, that's just ego. This all it's changing. It's all happening at its own beautiful rate to be able to work its way, so that even inside yourself, you won't need that anymore, so that we can become a buzzing hive to survive. And it's just beautiful to watch, and it's happening, as we know, to everybody. But my dream time state is just off the Richter. Like this year in particular, I've always been in gatherings and everything through dream time. That's where we had to correlate prior to this opening. Now that it's all open, it happens day, night. In particular, what we're seeing is with people on the front line, on the grounds, doing it, changing their jobs, connecting, something that now I feel that the universe and the entities and everything have found their own channeling way in. They were blocked. We keep thinking about us being blocked. No, they've been blocked. And now
I'm sure there's
it's opening. Yeah, they're coming in so easily.
Yeah.
And it's
I'm
beautiful.
sure
It's exciting.
I'm sure there's some type of symbiotic relationship there. There's no doubt. You brought up, and thank
Yeah.
you, Geraldine, for both of you for honoring us with your presence. And also our brother here, Eric. I'm going to just make a couple of comments and lead into Eric. I know this is going to be an interesting, powerful show. I can already feel it. You brought up growing up, and it's an interesting remark because, as a lot of people know, Morgan's been downloading this stuff about 20 years. And I asked her the other day, I said something about when's the first time you ever heard the word ascension? And she said in all those years, her higher self has never said that word, that the higher self always tells her, you're growing up. That's what you're doing. So
Yep.
I think is
Amen.
another important topic. And then also you brought up dream time and meetings. I want to maybe pick up on that too. But let's hear from Eric first. Welcome, Eric, to Soul Speaks 5D. Thank you for coming in and honoring us with your presence, sharing space with us. I felt your
Okay,
energy today.
Dad's got it.
No, he says he's broke. He doesn't have it.
Can you hear me on here? I don't know. Sometimes
Yeah,
I,
we can
okay.
we can hear you fine.
Okay.
We can hear you fine.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how long I've been watching you, but right now I'm having deja vu with all
Right.
four of you, or all the people that I see over there in the chat now too. But the thing I'm kind of going through is everything that y'all are speaking to right now. So I can definitely feel the power of this convergence with all the deja vu I'm having. I was born awake, if you want to call it that. And at 2.5 years old, I signed up with fear.
Yeah.
My mother moved here to Tennessee, where I'm living right now in this trailer, and I would hear spirits on the 22 acres that we live on, and at the time, I could hear all these footsteps marching through the packed pasture, and they felt like they were coming towards the house, and it scared me. So I called for my mom. My father was in the Navy. He wasn't there a lot, so she didn't really know what to do. We also have Native American Cherokees on this property, and they would talk to me too. And then it wasn't until I was in school that I started learning about the Cherokee and the Trail of Tears, and I was like, wow, I've already gotten dialogue about this. And I just really, though, the fear of everything, I just shut everything down. And going through life, I had all these different experiences, and I always kind of had this voice that would tell me things. You want to call it higher self, you want to call it connection to source, whatever. And these things would always come true. And fast forward to high school, my grandmother passed away. And growing up, I always kind of felt like I could talk with the spirits, even though I kind of did, but I didn't. And I didn't really connect with her fully then. She had a lot of problems, cancer and stuff, and she ended up dying of pneumonia. And I remember her just saying, you know, I wish I wasn't as hard on you boys growing up. And I was like, no, Granny, you're fine. So I would just keep telling her that. And then after high school, I went to the National Civilian Community Corps to do service. It's like a Peace Corps in the U.S. The second year I was in there, we were driving back from Arkansas to Charleston, it's a naval base, and all the guys were like, hey, man, take a break. You've drove the whole way. Lay back here on the luggage and take a nap. And I was very, 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 I was like, no, I can drive the rest of the way. I'm fine. It's only 2 more hours. Anyhow, talked me out of my gut instinct. I went back there, laid down. I fell asleep reluctantly. And I had this dream. And in the dream, everything was black. I heard wheels just squalling. Ooh. And I opened my eyes and I could see out the front windshield of the van, and I could see the center line go this way and go this way and went back this way. And then as it went back to the right, the van flipped onto its side. And I woke up and I was like, whoa, what was that? And I, like an idiot, went back to sleep. And I woke up and saw everything I saw in my dream. And when the van flipped and the dream cut out, I got to see the rest of it. And I was thrown through. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was, what they had done was a 15-passenger van. They had taken all the back seats out except for the first bench seat, and there was luggage stacked up to the back of the bench seat. So I went to the right. I don't know exactly how it all happened, but there was a big panel window, and I went into that. Luckily, I didn't go through it. I did go through it, but the asphalt caught me. And so I was riding down the pavement on my right shoulder and my right hip with 3,000 pounds of luggage on me. And I could see sparks flying in my face. And van came to a stop, and I could hear a car coming, wheels screeching on it. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to die. I should have listened to my dream.
But you didn't die.
I didn't.
But you didn't die.
But then after all that, I kind of sitting on the side of the interstate, I was like, I'm messed up. I feel like I'm going to feel a lot of pain from this in the future. And it kind of drove the fear even more, because now I knew what kind of power I was in contact or capable of. And I had not been utilizing it for my benefit. And now I took the bitter pill. And so I didn't do anything. I ended up getting out of there, worked at Walmart for 2 years. I worked for all these jobs for 2 years. Got into tattooing because I was an artist. And then I was working on my mother's house. The roof truss fell on my head. I had to stop tattooing for pain reasons. I became disabled. Fast forward to 2012, that seems to be the year everybody talks about. I was literally trapped. We had moved here. I was living in town. My health was like hitting rock bottom. Couldn't drive anymore, couldn't do anything. Still working on that one, but I finally was just sitting here one day, and I just said, I know there's been a lot of things that have happened, that I've had all these people. I knew people were going to get married. I knew people were going to die. I knew all these things. And I said, I need help. And I was watching a DirecTV thing on the Beatles and George Harrison and some kind of yogi guy. And I just closed my eyes while this music was playing. And I had this vision of like mermaids in the ocean. I'm a Pisces, and all this stuff just started happening. And I was like, came out of that, and I was like, that was pretty profound. And then I started meditating day by day. And I started meditating for 45 minutes, but my health wouldn't allow me to. But spirit started guiding me, started hooking me up, telling people's names that I would meet.
Right on.
And then I would see the people come into my life, and I'd be like, whoa, wait a minute. Okay, I guess I'm supposed to hook up with this healer guy. And then he started working with me, Chris Keller out of Canada. And I realized the things he was working on me were all the visions I was having in 2013. And so I've been on this road now for 6 years. I'm still working on my healing. In the last 3 or 4 years, I've been helping people clear negative energies, heal themselves, do all this stuff. But I'm just now starting to come out of the closet, like you say. And all of the people I've helped are like, you really need to share your gifts. And it's taken a lot of courage, because I just didn't feel like, well, I'm not healed yet, so I don't want to feel like
I don't see anybody walking on water flying through the air in a red cape.
That's true.
I think we're I think we're a great intros, everybody. Thank you for honoring us with your presence, sharing space with us. This is a powerful moment. I can feel it.
Thank you.
And we got a full moon tomorrow, so I think that might have something to do with it. Yeah, absolutely. So, few subjects here. He brought up a couple of good things. One was healing. That's a pretty wide subject on a lot of different aspects of it. Also, the stories. You know, he didn't bring up, you know, talking to him, but he was telling his story, which is important. I think it's important for everybody to at least once tell their story, especially if you can do it in front of another person. There's a lot of release that seems to come with that. And yeah, so maybe we come back with that. With these three beautiful souls here, we picked up about 8 different subjects. I'm gonna go back to Geraldine and get started with a little conversation here. We'll just go around the horn with each topic. You talk about your experience with Mother Ayahuasca, which is could be the same one as mine when my world turned upside down, or Eric as he was talking about his situation. Something to the effect of the mission, that you're here for a reason. So I'd like to kind of address that and see what your thoughts are on it with the little wild card question in it, which is, now that we know we're on a mission, what is your mission as you understand it, individually, collectively, and how do we focus on that mission when we're still, to a degree or another, dealing with functioning as a human being in this realm? Yeah, you're still Geraldine and I'm still Todd, and we're all connected, but to all of our different aspects, source and such. But how do we do that? What's your mission? What's our collective mission? And how do you deal with balancing the two?
Well, my mission wasn't really given to me in sort of a bullet point memo, right? I wish it had been, but the broad principles were given to me quite clearly. And it ties into what you also mentioned, which is the sacred union. And this is why I find some of your conversations when you talk about your connection with Morgan so compelling, right? Because I can identify with that. And I came to appreciate that my mission is connected with that energy, or the presentation of that energy to this plane at this time. Nothing could actually, that was one of the clearest things that came out of.
So just to restate it, so in other words, one of the things you got from it, because there are missions within the mission, I think, for everybody. And don't feel bad, because nobody got a bullet point that I know of, even those people who've been doing this 20 years like Morgan. But so to restate that, one of your missions, one of the primary things that you're doing is anchoring the physicality of sacred union. You know, we all know it, the sacred marriages within and such, but there's some type of transformation that we're involved with, which is integrating the physical and the non-physical, the manifestation of etherical, however you want to put it. So that's one of them. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
And then also, how does that fit, or where do you stand with that in terms of where you're at now with your experience so far with the collective transformation? Is sacred union, in your perspective, a big part of that? Maybe you could talk a little bit more about how you balance your normal life with your awakened life.
That's a tricky balance, continues to be a really tricky balance. So what became clear to me, there was that most significant ceremony where the energy was coming through, and the energy presented itself as actually being from the stars, was the actual message that I got, right? And that kind of blew my mind in itself. I wasn't prepared for that. So I came to understand that it was a kind of pre-birth arrangement that I'd made, connected with my partner. So I won't name him, but it was an arrangement that was made.
That's okay. We won't tell anybody. I'm just kidding.
So it was an arrangement that we'd made wherever we come from, which is also not so surprising, galactically connected. You know, we are star seeds. Both of us come here to anchor, as you say, a certain kind of energy in this time. The ceremony I'd had prior to that was one that was incredibly emotional. I essentially cried for 3.5 to 4 hours on the mat, lying in the Maloka, as I came to realize that I'd met the person who I really intended to meet, right? So there was a sense of being able to put down a burden. And it was an astonishing emotional release as I came to the realization. And so I left Peru with at least these understandings, right? They was connected to my partner, that we had a physical connection here, as well as a non-physical connection, both here and from beyond. And and I also had that clear message that really, if you do nothing in this incarnation, you have to do this meaning bring him into his power. And the question mark for me for a long time was what it meant to bring him into his power. Now he's a shall I say, a non-believer, or I mean, incredibly kind-hearted person, very open to what I have to say.
I think everybody's beating at the same vibration, just doesn't look that way. But I love that description, and I've run across a lot of couples like that. Let me ask you something real quick before we go around the horn a little bit more. We'll come back. Did you know him before you took the ayahuasca?
Okay.
Did you know?
I did. We kind of worked together. We're associated through work, and we were in each other's circles, and then our relationship was our friendship was converting to a relationship around the time I signed up to go to Peru. And then between the time I signed up to go and I went, we began our relationship. So it was a really fresh relationship.
Go figure that.
Yeah.
Yeah, go figure that. That's a little universal orchestration there. Jennifer, so in terms of what your mission is, what do you know of it? Has it become any clearer as time's gone on? I mean, what can you say about our purpose here?
Well, I've always kind of been on a mission anyway, sort of thing. So I walked in off the plank. The first one was to help my parents, and then the next one was to help teachers in the schoolyard. I used to have a knack. I was always called lucky or always happy or whatnot. I used to play with the colors since I was a little girl, and openly, because I was so suppressed at home. Leaving the front door was my oyster. So the world has been my playground, and I've really enjoyed myself. And I think I've realized now that seeing auras around people and everything, you know, whilst growing up and being a teenager and whatnot, put me into exactly the right place, because I was obviously attracted to the, you know, the nice and everything. So luck didn't really, thinking about it now, everyone just called me lucky and stuff. But to be honest, it's obviously working with spirit, living with spirit, honoring spirit. As you know, I had my Kundalini experience in January, which just of this year, which just blew me into the ethers. I've always been on the ground or with the fairies in the elemental realms. Now I'm absolute free access past to all and sundry, and so therefore therein with that comes the absolute just brilliance of just dream time, just ancient visits, just walking through wherever, it is just so much fun. I've had the best time this year, and I think that I created my basis. So I was lucky. I was born into money. I was born in Australia. You know, you have to think, yeah, sure, there is, you know, that beauty involved. It must have been a platform that I was already preordained to walk upon. I mean, even my parents, there's such a beautiful story there. Both of them, you're talking about this union and that, both were married to other people when they met. They went on a P&O cruise here around Australia. And my father had been married for 5 years, and he was on a remuneration of the marriage. And my mum had only just got married and was on a honeymoon. They met, fell in love at first sight. I was conceived on the boat somewhere in the Atlantic. And I was a year old when they got their divorces settled on both sides. So they're both on their third marriages now, because their union together was absolutely passionate, hardcore, everything. So, you know, they lasted 16 years together because it just got so much. They were so laid and encumbered by making money, by all the pressures of society and everything.
Yeah.
And there's their little girl just living through spirit, having a fat time, you know. So
right.
they're in their 70s now, and I'm in my 40s. And I've been with my partner for the last 18 years, and we've got 6 kids together. And through this Kundalini experience, my phone's on 2%. So if it goes, I'm just going to tell you this. What I've experienced now, I mean, I'm writing children's books now and all sorts of stuff, you know, because it's ground level. You know, I'm even creating tarot cards for kids. Just, you know, I wish that I had all that when I was a kid. I didn't, right? So this is just something friendly, and, you know, it'll go to where it's meant to go. But all from Dreamtime as well, which is beautiful and gentle. But basically what happened after my Kundalini experience, as you know, it just, it's cleared me out. I have none of those societal things, whether my parents put it on me or society or whatever. It's a beautiful thing. I've been able to be there for my children and my partner, so much so. In amongst all of that, being with the Dreamtime and basically writing on dragons,
you're covering way too many subjects.
I know, but I've only got 2%, and then I'm going to go. I just want to tell you, I have a second heart.
I understand.
I have grown a second heart. I have a second heart, a golden heart, and this golden heart is on the right-hand side, and this one is connected to everything, and I see the flecks of gold in his eyes, his pupils, the little black pupils are love hearts. I see, you know, yeah, there's so much there. It's beautiful. But I grew a second heart. It's in there, in the chest, a golden heart.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing all
You're
that.
welcome.
There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people that are having dimensional experiences, interdimensional experiences, third eye, physical apparitions of the gold. Gold beings, gold star family, golden particles of creation, golden liquid. So this is something that, you know, the universe speaks to each one of us in its own unique way, or we speak to ourselves in our own unique way, if you want to look at it that way. But I think that there's definitely something to this golden white light that a lot of people have talked about. I know I've seen it in the, how long has it been? 8 years since I woke up. This particular golden white light would come around. And to me, one of the big aspects of it was healing, which brings us back to Eric, brings us over to Eric. So let's get to Eric on this subject. You brought up healing, the word healing. Some people have talked about it, and they've said that word doesn't apply anymore because it basically suggests that there's something wrong with us that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
But I think that can be looked at two different ways, you know, the reality of what we are, who we are, what we're a part of, but also the things that we have to correct and align with and integrate and process through our incarnations, plural. So let me ask you this now, with what's been said by the two ladies here, and with what you told us, which I can be a little presumptuous and understand that you are healing others, you are healing yourself. You've come into and had some already, what we might call supernatural skills and abilities, which we all have, you know, which we're all coming into. That's part of it. How do you, first of all, do you know, and there's nothing, no right or wrong answer. Do you know what your mission is? And two, how do you balance the two? How do you balance being Eric in your daily life, 3D-ish or whatever you want to call it, and also carrying forward this expanded awareness moment by moment?
Yeah, that's really, that's me in a nutshell. Healing for me, you know, I've watched a lot of different people talk about that. I just watched the shaman thing today, and I understand that there's, like you're saying, there's the dualistic part to everything. So, you know, there definitely is, and I'm actually having to heal on both sides of that spectrum. I've got genetic stuff that the doctors diagnosed me with mitochondrial stuff, and then I've got the van accident. I've got the roof truss falling on my head, which damaged my spine at T6. So I'm having to do all the metaphysical stuff and clear out generational stuff so that I can allow my physical body to heal from those physical accidents or manifestations. And yeah, I have gotten the bullet points. That's probably another really big challenge for me. When I first, in 2014, I started seeing Chris Keller, and then a friend recommended me to a sound therapist. I went to the sound therapist, and I told her about the visions I'd been having 2012, 2013. So she sent me home with homework the first night, and she said, I want you to come back next time I see you. I want you to connect with a spirit guide, and I want you to tell me your life's mission. I was like, oh, don't lay it on thick or anything, you know?
Yeah, right.
And, but that was a Saturday. I went home. I had my wife at that point stop at a crystal shop. I got some selenite. I came home. I made a grid. She had a little 15-minute walk me through thing. I plugged that in. I went in. I had this whole shamanistic vision quest where it starts out, go to a safe place, or it said, go to a place, and I was flying over the ocean. And then it was like, be somewhere safe. And I just landed on a raft, and I was like, well, there might be sharks in the water. I better get on land. So I saw this island. I went to the island, went down this path. I met spirit guide, higher self, whatever you want to call it. And it was just a blue being. I couldn't see its face. It was just kind of smudged out, but it kind of had a bluish white tone. And it said that I have several missions, but the one that's to get me going, I'd always been good with children. Everybody always threw me with the kids, and I played with the kids, and I was the toy, and kids just loved me. And it said, you're supposed to teach the children about all this awakening and how to grow up, like you were saying, Jennifer, about growing up and having these things that I didn't have growing up. I wish my mom could have worked with me. I wish I had a Todd to talk to. I wish, you know, but we are the ones we've been waiting for. And so
that's right.
That's really
so. Yeah.
What were you
so
going to say?
Let me ask you one quick question. Well, I was going to ask you one quick question before we go back to Geraldine. Just in general, you know, just so we can share this information because it's full of code and activations. Yeah. Have you experienced significant healing through your non-traditional or non-3D practices?
Yes. In 2013, I vicariously raised my Kundalini. I went through all the negative stuff, a lot of pain to the legs and everything, and I was having to really focus on the pain and connect with other beings and get guidance. And that's been the big thing. They'll tell me the details. I've connected with babies before they've been born. I've been told I get all the details. And when you get all the details, that puts a lot of pressure on you as you're just starting to wake up. You're like, can I do this again? You know, it's like,
I think you might have been getting heavier doses than a lot of us.
well,
but
and
you know, and you're right.
Yeah. And
you're right. You know,
that's been the real crux. And then I've been going through the, like they call the dark night of the soul. So my wife, who I was told the day before I met her, you're going to meet your wife and you're going to have a daughter. And we're in the process of splitting up. So I'm having to heal that as well. The ego, you know, you talk about the ego and the masculine and the feminine, and I'm having to kind of really watch my reactions to things and don't get butt hurt about stuff. And so I hope that answered your question, kind of healing on the
absolutely,
non-physical.
Well, it actually answers, absolutely answers the question, and also leads into something Geraldine brought up, which we can get our different perspectives on, because it's all the same thing. It's just 7.5 billion different perspectives, basically. But Geraldine, you said a lot in your opening intro. You talked about, in one respect or another, you talked about shadows. You're also in a kind of a unique situation on Soul Speaks 5D, because most of us are outlaws and renegades and don't have normal jobs. But so you're an attorney, and you've had your awakening. You go through this ayahuasca experience. You have your awakening. You get your mission, or your primary mission, or one of the primary missions. Or you said it was the one thing you know for sure, and that is to anchor sacred union to this planet. If you don't do anything else. I think that's what you said. My question is, how important is shadow work? Has shadow work been in your life? Where is it as a priority now? And do you think there's a relation to the shadow work that you've done and the relationship that you have with your sacred partner?
Okay. For me, a lot of the shadow work I actually did quite early on in a conventional way. So like many of us, starseeds didn't have the happiest of childhoods. My parents weren't happily married. Wasn't terribly rough, but you know, there was stuff to work out with both my parents. And I'd worked a lot of that out in a conventional way. By that, I mean reading self-help books, learning about forgiveness, learning about agency, etc. And then building good relationships with both my parents. So I felt like, and those were some of my deepest shadows, right? Feeling like a victim and feeling like life wasn't fair. There have been other shadows, and I've worked through those shadows with my partner, even though he doesn't always realize it. But
oh my gosh.
Yeah, the sacred union, I believe, heals a lot of very deep wounds in both partners, as it heals for the planet, right? Because sexuality is such a loaded concept, and so within that, I think both partners are bringing probably lifetimes of build-up. And a lot of my darkest shadows have been healed through this particular relationship, just because it's been in some ways such an easy relationship. The chemistry is automatic. The communication is really clear and very respectful. So we kind of moved up chakra levels quite quickly in our relationship, right? And then as soon as we began to operate at a heart-to-heart level, and this is what's so interesting for someone who, on his part, is isn't particularly awakened, but he doesn't even realize how heart-based he is, right? He's very open.
Yeah.
As soon as that was kind of activated between us, the healing went another level. So the shadow work has continued. There's another shadow aspect for me, which leads into the job. So that's been really reconciling the ego, reconciling the house in my job and in my personal life. The ego has been really successful, like it's helped me navigate this life, this particular plane, through real ego tricks, through the discipline, through the drive, through the goal setting, etc., etc. And so the shadow work that I've had to do is saying to the ego, thanks a lot for all that you've done, but you're going to have to learn to cooperate and take the back seat.
Yes, sit in the back seat. Yeah. Sit in the back seat. You're not meant to lead. You're here to educate me.
But the problem is the ego says, look at the great job I've done, look at where you are, you're comfortable, etc., etc. What do you mean you want to?
Yeah, that's only good. That's only good through. Yeah, but when you wake up the next morning, it's meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter if you what was that? It doesn't matter if you shape.
And the conversation with the ego is along the lines of, do you want to go through this being fearful, wondering if you need to achieve, how you're going to do it, competing, or do you want to go through this in a way that's full of joy and love? Yeah. And so my ego kind of got it. I actually had a conversation with it one night where it agreed. It said, okay, I'll go to the back seat. And I'm seeing this around me, right? I'm seeing that same sort of realization is kind of happening in the business world, but not consciously. So people are waking up to an extent, and they're realizing that there has to be more than the bottom line, that they have more joy. They're facing anxiety and depression. They have more joy when they work in a way that's collaborative, and so on and so forth. But it's not conscious. They're kind of wondering why it is that they want to do good, struggling to find a way to do good within the parameters that we've set up. That's all about money. And I'm watching this, and my current interesting challenge in my job is to move the realization forward. Once you do that spiritually, actually, I know that we're going to make a quantum leap in the business world. And part of that is people letting go of the egos that have been really successful for them, but they've got to realize, like you said, isn't enough.
Yeah. No, it isn't. No, it's interesting. Very interesting. We're going to bring up, we lost one, so we're going to bring one on here in a minute. Our sister Janie Hodges out of Portland or Oregon somewhere. So, but let me ask Eric first. Eric, you're in a very unique situation. You're a healer. And again, you've done a lot of healing on yourself in involving of not just the emotional and the mental and the physical, but all the way around. How important is shadow work to you? Is there anything, Eric, that's more important than that? I mean, I'm not trying to advocate it or not advocate it. I'm just asking you your perspective and any other comments you have on it.
No, I'm totally with you. I feel like it's probably one of the most significant and rewarding parts of it. It's ongoing. I don't care how clear you get. There's going to be more to clear on different levels, because we're not just getting to where we are, but we're securing the future at the same time. And so there's shadow work that may be in your next life that you can handle now, if you can get that far. And so like, for example, at the beginning of the year, I was told that my healing would start taking a big jump start or a big boost when I start to master the lucid dreams state. And I've had lucid dreams all my life. I don't know anything other than that, but actually gave me the name of the person I'd be working with because I was watching this thing and the guy was like, I want to tell the world. And then he put a $15,000 or $1,500 price tag on it. I was like, well, you're going to have to come down on the price if you're going to help everybody. And so I met this girl a few months ago, and she actually, I watched one of her YouTube videos, and she talked about the paranormal, and I had deja vu, and deja vu is really just a precursor. It's just like a jolt to tell you there's more to this. It goes deeper. And so that's, and some people are like, oh, deja vu, I feel comfortable, I'm going the right way. It's not always that either. It's just to get your attention. And so I was told that once I met her, I would start working with her. And after I met up with her, I realized that she had a physical healing where she healed her stomach, and she talked about it on camera one night. And she said this guy came up, you can ask a question, and then you can create a dream character to come in. It's your subconscious, and they'll help you achieve the healing that you need. And she said this guy came up in this neighborhood, and I said, oh my God, if she talks about going into a pool, walking through somebody's house, I've been there. And so I have these dreams where I'm like in you, and I'm seeing out through your eyes. And so everything she described, I had been there. So that gave me the confidence to know I'm on this journey. So I'm getting closer and closer, and I'm securing more and more healing. And she had talked about how to put yourself into sleep paralysis. And I was doing that one night, and from the van accident, I have a lot of pain still in the body, and I can get really bad in the bed if I lay there too long. So actually putting myself into sleep paralysis was causing all this pain to come back up, and I was having to just do clearings to get myself out. And long story short, while I'm putting myself into sleep paralysis, and you do this while to access the REM, which is your rapid eye movement, and Spirit started really talking to me as I'm trying not to swallow, because if you swallow, it takes you out of sleep paralysis. I'm trying not to focus on all the pain my body's in, and I'm starting to get rigid, and I'm trying to relax, and I'm doing like 5 or 6 things at once. And Spirit's like, all right, you remember that dream where you went in this house and you went down into the basement of another house and you went into the underworld? And I was like, yeah. And went into the underworld, and there was nothing in there except for me and this girl, which is the girl I'm working with in dreams. But Spirit's telling me Lilith. And I'm like, oh, well, she's not a very good person. And Spirit just said, let it in, let go of all your fear and let this energy come in. And so I was like, all right, just let it go. And as I'm feeling the energy like enter my sacral area, my eyes are like going every which way but loose. So I'm realizing I'd seen this guy named Charlie Goldsmith who does healings, and his eyes do this. So I realized at that point he's accessing REM while he's awake and healing people. I'm like, well, I must be healing myself a little bit. And then it said you're remerging, you've separated yourself from your lower self, this Lilith character. And so then the next day, one of my soul sisters sent me a video that I had seen posted the night before, but Spirit said, don't watch it right now. So I watched it the next day, and this woman's talking about Lilith and how all these women are going through all this stuff. And I'm like, well, okay, I'm a God that's in touch with my femininity. Let's go with it. And so then I did the research, and there's all these different aspects. And I can remember years ago, I was like, I wonder how important asteroids are in the zodiac. Well, apparently Lilith is the dark moon, it's the asteroid, and there's a couple other aspects. And once I found out where my dark moon black Lilith was, it was in my Capricorn, which is in my 4th house. And Capricorn is supposed to be in your 10th house, which is your business, but now it's in your motherhood. And then it described, well, you probably grew up, your parents got divorced, you ended up living with the parent that couldn't connect with you emotionally and give you the things that you needed emotionally. You would grow up and you would make it your life mission to not have these things happen, to, like, you know, have a good marriage and to work on it with your partner and do all this stuff. But you're going to marry a woman that just won't emotionally be there and spiritually won't be there when it happens. And I'm like, oh my God, this is describing my life to a T. So it was like working with the dream state and clearing out, like you're saying, actually going to the underworld and meeting these aspects of ourself. Because when we're born, you know, all these energies out there are part of us. It's our inner solar system. So
of course, and I think this is, I just want to keep it going so we can get to everybody. But I love that you shared that. I think, you know, one of the things that, you know, sitting in this chair, you know, we've got about 1,500 episodes of this show now, and being blessed to sit in this chair, the information is moving very fast. There is, even in our physicality, there's a metaphoric aspect to everything. And, you know, so the stories, you know, whether an asteroid means this or that, whether horoscope, planetary positioning means anything, or does it mean anything to a person, because it doesn't mean anything to me. But I know it means to a lot of my friends, it means a whole lot. Maybe I should listen to it. But my point is that it's all energy and it's all telling us something. And what I love about your story is, because we're talking about shadows, Lilith was you. Everything is you. And there was something, you know, like my higher self told me a couple of months ago, in all cases, every time, no matter what, you are the separation. There is no separation unless you are the one responsible for it. So integrating these shadows is obviously becoming a top priority. It's just difficult, going back to what Geraldine was talking about, having a conversation with the ego, because the ego wants to tell you how special and unique you are and how you're not like those other people. Which brings us to our beloved sister, Janie Hodges, who has been around supporting Soulogy for a long time. Hey, Janie, what's happening? But I love that you came in at this time, because, you know, I don't respond. I don't have time to reply a lot to different comments and stuff and message people, but I always am aware of their energy. And I love your energy when you come in, because you're always straight up, no bullshit. And you have emotions, you have emotions. You have opinions, you have opinions. You have feelings, you have feelings. And at the end of the day, you're still a warrior all the time, every moment. And I want to get your take on what we're talking about, which is shadow work. And to expand on what Eric's talking about, the reality, or whatever your opinion is, the non-reality, the absolute or the non-absolute of merging with every single thing that is put before you, whether it's an etherical, non-physical, or a physical situation, whatever. Is it important? How important is it? Is it an absolute? Are we going to integrate with everything sooner or later, let go or be dragged? I mean, where do you stand on this? I'm interested to know.
That's like that's a big question for me. That's cute. I don't know. I think that, like, for me in my past, like, I was guided at my own pace, and I'm still guided every day at my own pace. And I feel like everybody's open to wherever they're at in their journey. And so if you're ready, you're going to be dragged. If your spirit guides think you're ready, you're probably going to be dragged a little bit. If you feel like you're ready, and you can just open those gates for yourself, because if you go within yourself, you can just they kind of give you a little bit of guidance, or they send you somewhere that you can get that guidance from.
Do you feel like that? Do you feel like that? Because it sounds similar to what Eric was just talking about in a different way. But do you feel like you're in charge of programming what happens to you now?
I think we always have been in charge of programming what happens to us. I think now it's just people are realizing that. that they get to choose. And so if we all kind of stand up and then we just say, you know, I'm choosing this, and then people will see that you chose that for yourself, and then they'll ask the question, they'll start doing it for themselves too. That's what I see in my life. Like, I have a lot of people that see that.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you a question that, because normally I'd go to the next question, go back to Geraldine, but Geraldine's already hit on it, and I want to see what she says after you say what you say, and Eric too, and that is relationships. Now, Geraldine talked about when she went on, took ayahuasca, experienced ayahuasca, that she was told many things, and the one thing that she was told was that no matter what she does, if she does nothing else, she is to anchor this union, this connection, help this partner to expand, I guess, would be the word to use, and also to expand the relationship or build and expand a relationship. So whether we're talking about sacred union or the typical old 3D romantic relationships or something in between, because I don't think anybody's got it down pat. What, and I know because you made a comment the other day, I think it was last night on the show, about your situation and your relationship. You don't have to talk about anything you don't want to, but this is Soulogy, and we're just trying to be raw and real. But my question is, what has that relationship taught you, or the relationships in general? What do they teach you about yourself? What are the things that really jump out at you in this relationship that you're in, or maybe a past one, that you've learned about yourself that you had no freaking idea?
This relationship that I'm in right now is a little bit kind of like what Geraldine kind of touched on. For her partner isn't very woke, or I mean, that's what they say is woke or whatever, you know. But he's not like into the spirituality or conscious thinking like I am. And so it's a struggle for me to try to have, but for some reason when we come together, our energies will still merge, and I can be you know, a wonderful day and our energies will still merge. So I don't know what that means, but I've separated myself from it because it hasn't been working lately. And my self-love for myself, and to bring in my feminine, and so that way my masculine can come in. So I have to be very clear about what I want, and so I have to put
to thine own self be true.
Yeah. So I had to put those
to thine own
boundaries.
self be true.
I think what I learned is that I don't know what I learned. I can't come up with anything.
Well, that was a good one. That was a good explanation. I mean, we're just winging it here. It's not going to go perfect for any of us. I'm the one asking the questions. I'm messing it up really bad. But let's go back to Geraldine. I just like the fact that we have different perspectives here. We've got Eric, who's dissolving a relationship. We've got Janie, who's in a suspended animation of a relationship, and we have Geraldine, who was told by Mother Ayahuasca, go find your partner. You already know who he is, and get this thing on, because this is what you're here to do. If you don't do anything else, this is the main thing. My question to Geraldine is, it's these relationships. Well, let me put it to you a different way. Morgan told me one time, because I asked her when she first came over, and I had a lot more shadow then, a whole lot more that I wasn't aware of, and she put me through what I called a boot camp, which was just intensive energy work day after day for 5 weeks. And so I asked her later, how the hell did you do that? How did you? I mean, I wasn't that bad, but I was definitely projecting. And she said I had to own everything that you were. That if you were my divine masculine, I had to own everything that you were and are, whether I understood it or not. Geraldine, can you resonate with that? Can you expand on that? And thirdly, what have you learned about yourself that really jumps out in this relationship?
Yeah. Oh, completely. The acceptance, right? I think that what Morgan told you is so beautiful. Once we are taught, relationship books will say you've got to accept the person for who they are and so on, right? But really, what does it mean when you live it? When you really, whatever baggage that person comes with, whatever they trigger in you, to completely accept the other person and say, from the darkest to the lightest, I love you, and I'm going to deal with this. It's so empowering. And we've had conversations, because we're quite similar personalities. We've had conversations where we work through things, and we're almost competing to own stuff. It's like, no, this was my issue. I should have dealt with it this way. And I'm saying, no, this one was on me. The communication is so fair, and it's not icky. It's not, overly romantic. In fact, it's the opposite. It's a very straightforward style of communicating, but there's real acceptance on both our parts of each other's, whatever you want to call it, eccentricities, quirks, shadows, and so on. The other thing that's really great about the relationship is the space. So in this sense, it's kind of unconventional, right? There's from the very beginning, there wasn't this feeling of having to see each other all the time, even though the connection was strong. So there wasn't that kind of what happens in new relationships, that energy where you become obsessed with the other person quite early on. There wasn't. There was this feeling almost of like, we're just reconnecting because we're all friends in a way, right? So we're just going to pick up where we left off. There's no impatience. There's no kind of, oh my God, I'll die if I don't see you tomorrow. There's just an understanding that we're carrying on the journey. So that's been fantastic. And what I've learned from it, actually, this came up quite just a few months ago, 6 months ago. I was placing an obligation on him around communication, right? So even though we're not in each other's pockets, I would expect a certain amount of communication, right? It's like, well, you should call me, and I haven't heard from you for so long, etc. And it was starting to annoy me, and I just let that one go. I said, like, you are under no obligation. I actually said the words to him: I release you from any obligation to keep in touch with me. And he got it. He said, I will only communicate with you when I want to, and I want to. So, relax about it, right? And in fact, the communication increased because there was no obligation. So I've learned.
I like that.
Yeah.
I really like that. That actually, to me, carries the same frequency or energy that works. I'm not an expert. I mean, I'm a beginner, but that works with sacred sexuality, where you do what you want to do. But this, of course, is not in a 3D sense, And of course, I'm picking this up from your sister Morgan because she explains it all to me. But it's actually true. It's actually true. It's when you're doing what, like in his case, he said, I'll call you when I want to call you. Well, that's exactly when he should call you. And that creates this expanded frequency or expanded communication or connection, I think, that you're talking about, which I think is really important, because what I'm learning in my relationship is that whatever that vibration is over here, it's the same here, and here with her, and as it evolves with other people as well. And we're talking energy, we're talking balance and equality and that type of thing.
And there's one other thing I'll say, that in that conventionally, our society has this concept of a relationship escalator, right? Like you meet, and then you start dating, and then you meet each other's friends and parents, and then et cetera, and you move in together.
And you have babies.
Yeah. And there are all these things you have to tick off, right? So we don't have that kind of attitude towards our relationship. We're just expanding within it. So the expansion is more like I guess a 5D expansion. It's a consciousness expansion, within the relationship, rather than this 3D kind of a notion of how a relationship develops. And to me, that's been the biggest gift of it.
Roles and labels, right? The old roles and labels.
But
I
we also
just
play
want
with
to
the
put it out
roles and
there.
labels. So we play with the masculine and the feminine. That's just why, I mean, you and Morgan and the experiences you have together, I just listen to it and I'm in awe. And I can't wait, because I think it's coming, for when he consciously accepts the energy between us.
Sure. Well, he better get going, because you're going to be morphing into a dragon in the bed pretty soon. I'm kidding. We just have to bring the humor, the wisdom of humor too, but it's true. But anyway, I just want to put it out there, Geraldine, because I know Morgan's going to tell me this when she sees this tape. If he would like to come on with you, we'd love to have a discussion with him on SoulSpeaks Friday. I think that'd be fantastic. Actually, hear the details.
Can Morgan put him through the boot camp?
Yeah,
I'll certainly talk to her about it, and if she watches this show, I'm sure she'll be very open to that. So here's another thing too, because we all have these different things, and they all look different. That's what I loved about bringing up this topic with these 3 different scenarios, or even 4 if you include me. Is, you know, we all have these different, on the outside and the superficial, they look different, but energetically, it's all kind of the same thing, and it's a little complicated for the human brain and mind, right? But so if we look at this whole situation too, now Eric was courageous enough and open enough, direct enough to say his situation with his relationship. And so I go back to, because this is what boot camp was all about. It was all about the shadow work and accepting your own bullshit, so to speak. So Eric, how, and this is really for everybody, because this is why we have this show, is so we can relate our personal experiences, because as the individual goes, so goes the collective, and maybe somebody will have that light bulb go off, right? So Eric, you know, in your situation, how easy, how difficult is it to not externalize and project and blame on the partner, and to take responsibility for the whole creation yourself? Is it easy? Is it difficult? Is there anything you could suggest one way or the other to people who might be in that same situation? Because there's a lot of it going on right now.
Right. You know, like you said earlier, I mean, you know, you don't believe in the asteroids, and I think that's fine. I think everybody has to have their own experience. Like, I might not believe in something, but then spirit opens me up to it. And so I think with the relationships, it's the same thing. But if your partner's not willing to, like you said, work on their shadow, and they're projecting on you, it's really hard. It's the most single hardest thing. And I've had other healers that I've worked with, the sound therapist, and another good one, David Arms, who, you know, said, Eric, you've got to work, you know, you can't allow your ego to, you know, keep you from the work that you've got to do to heal yourself. And that's probably been one of my biggest challenges, because we have a child together, and I see all this. It's hard, you know, her blaming her, and then and there is no one to blame. Like you're saying, it's really, everyone's in this different place, but at the same time, like Geraldine's talking about, you know, I think there's certain situations where those 2 individuals are ready to allow that to happen. And like with you and Morgan, you know, I'm not envious, but I've heard your stories where you're laying there and you got your hand and you have these dragon experiences. And I've raised my Kundalini with one other person, and it was like mind blowing. And I'm like, I know that if I had that experience with my wife, she could heal what she's got to heal. She's not disabled, but she's had cancer stuff, all this stuff. And I got the downloads before it came. So it's like, in that respect, it was very hard, because I want to help. I want to, like Geraldine's saying, be that person that helps them open up and experience their own individual power and own it. And we can come together and rise above everything. And it's been so heartbreaking to realized that, like you said, many times, that we really have to, go inside and work on the self. And I've been told a lot of things about other people that, soul partners. I don't know if I totally don't know the difference between a soul twin flame and a soulmate. I think it's we all have these karmic, like you said, contracts, and we've got everything set up before we come in. We forget everything, and we come in, and then we have an opportunity to remember and to work through it. And if somebody's not willing to tow their weight, there's going to be somebody else that may step forward. Or in my case, I feel like I'm going to have to go it alone for a while and really heal all the aspects of myself, so that, because I'm not blaming her. I mean, there was my own points where I was like, maybe I can do better in this respect, and I worked on it. But when you're the only one working and the other person is totally admitting that they don't have a spiritual, they just want to do the 3D stuff, I think that's at the point where you have to, my ego was holding on, because I was told that the day before I met her, it'll be up to her. Because I was like, oh, I'm going to meet the girl, I'm going to marry her, and we're going to have a kid. And I saw the white picket fences, and the spirit was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We didn't say all that. We said it will be up, it will end up coming down to her decision. And so I've always left it up to her and tried to control myself in a way that allows her to be her. But if you can't be together, then I think it makes it hard. I hear Geraldine's story, and I hear your story with Morgan, and it gives me hope that that's still out there for me or other people who have to go through a separation or can't work it out with someone that they got with before they woke up, Yeah.
Well, I think, the interesting thing about what you're talking about, and Morgan has this saying that this information, which she's been receiving for years and years, as some others have, that it's not going to be stopped. That everyone in their heart wants that partner. There's got to be some type of consideration for that in the perfect design of this experience that we all put together. But what I was getting at is attachment. Attachment. Now, again, we're talking energy. We just happen to be on the superficial topic of relationships. All right. So if and I've spoken about this before. I mean, 8 years ago when I started downloading, Jesus walked in the door and said, let me tell you a story. You're my son. You were born to me and Mary Magdalene. Here's what happened. And I wrote this book over 4 days, and it was just an account of this dimensional experience, of this metaphoric representation, however you want to describe it. I never once said to myself that was literal. I knew in some cosmic sense that it was true, but again, it was energy. It wasn't. And so what I'm getting at is I'm only using myself as an example, not because I'm perfect, because I'm not. I didn't attach to that. There's no difference between attaching to the download that I received or someone else received, the divine essence that they communicated with or that they channel, and being attached to what occurs in a situation like that happened the day before you met your wife. I had a similar experience happen the day that I met Morgan, and I talked to her on the phone. I convinced her to talk to me on the phone, which she never talked to people on the phone, but she did. And I saw a vision, but just as I kind of know what I saw, she has a saying, we're only as good as we are today. We don't know. We're only as good as what we're doing today, to each other, for each other, as a couple, whatever the case is. So I think the attachment thing is a big deal. I think as we go through this ascension, as we continue to go into it and head into 2020, that the topics are going to lessen, and they're going to come down to just basically two choices, two scenarios. And sometimes the shoe doesn't fit, you can't wear it. You can't stick a square peg in a round hole. And we've all been through that frequency that you're talking about, or that experience, that you're talking about, where we would say, I did it. I think we've all done it. We say, well, if they would just do this, everything will be all right. But I realize in my relationship that that doesn't apply. If she does this, everything's going to be all right. If she does this, if she understands this, everything's going to be all right. No, it doesn't work that way. It has nothing to do with her, right? It's just me, it's me. And, I don't know. And maybe the masculine journey is different. In fact, I know it is, but I've really learned from one thing, and that I learned from her in I don't know what boot camp it was. It might have been the 13th or 14th or 15th one. But, and that is, if you know it, why you got to say it? For me, and for I think a lot of men, we have to say, oh, and you said something about you got to own this in a different way. But the point is why do I got to say it? If I know it and I'm right, why do I got to say it? And if I am wrong, and whether I know it or don't know it, then it serves my best interest not to say anything, and then there's something about that silence. There's something about not having to be right. There's something about, that actually heals or stabilizes or neutralizes the ego.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about that, and that's something that has been very difficult for me, because with spirit, I've been going through this has been the biggest challenge. If I had to put one, is knowing when to talk and when not to. Like, spirit will give me a lot of information. Maybe I'm working with someone, and instead of saying, well, you need to do this, this, or this, you, as a healer, you want them to actually get the picture. And so in a lot of ways, I've been more successful at what you're talking about with people I'm working with. But then again, I think my wife, in her own intuition, whether she has visions or not, she knew before we got together her role and how it was going to work out too. And so I wasn't attached to the outcome so much as I was trying to figure out what to say and what not to say, because I had a lot of information and I would know what to not to say, but then she would say things that would prompt me to be like, well, she's open. And then as soon as I start speaking and not even like trying to tell or anything, but trying to open up a conversation, it would just all get shut down and be like, well, okay, maybe. And so I understand what you're saying. I think that's a very powerful thing.
I don't have the answer. I just know that when in doubt, keep my mouth shut. Because and I think that applies for anything, like if you don't know what to do, don't do anything. That's another thing. Let's wind it up a little bit. Janie, thank you for coming on. I'm so happy you did. Thank you for always being there. I appreciate all your comments and support, because it's not easy on this end, and people like you make it all the worthwhile. When I get down in the dumps or tired and want to curse the universe and all that stuff. But,
there's one thing.
So Janie,
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, well, say whatever you want, but I wanted to, well, this is where I'm going with it. Closing comments. Do you have any advice, anything you can put on the table, any words of wisdom, any rants, anything you want to share with your brothers and sisters as we walk out the door?
I just wanted to talk about the relationship thing a little bit, kind of from my perspective and how I see it too, and kind of the issues that I struggle with by myself, kind of, just to see kind of if you guys have any advice for me as well. One of the things that you talk about a lot with Morgan about your guys' relationship, I hear Morgan say a lot of things about how she had very strong boundaries. And did she not have like pretty strong boundaries with you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah.
when I'm talking about like the unconditional love aspect of relationships, and how if a situation arises, we're supposed to just, oh, it's okay. And for me, like, you know what I mean? So like for me, I kind of struggle with that. Like, are my boundaries ego? Like, are they ego, or because I feel for the most part I'm coming from unconditional love. right? Because that's
Well, you know, I think you, well, this is, but yeah, this is part of the big, you know, this is part of the big challenge. But I think when you know, you bring up unconditional love, and I think that yeah, we've all been there with the statement you just made. But I think the unconditional love thing, really, the boundaries. You know, I'm a big believer in if you maintain and expand your field of protection, you don't need to state any boundaries. Now, this is just my own thing. It's not something that I've never even talked to Morgan about it really, but and I'm talking about it as an individual. But in terms of a relationship, you know, what she's doing and what she's talking about when she talks about those things is she's choosing unconditional love for herself. That
Yeah.
no matter how much she might love me, if I'm doing something that's just, you know, if I have a, say, I had a, say I had a, I don't want to say had, but I'm thinking about different things that happened. But if I had a pattern or behavior that I was unaware of and unconscious of, it might have taken her 3 or 4 times of saying, hey, we need to have a come to Jesus meeting. I don't care how much I love you. If this can't happen. I'm not saying you're wrong, Todd. I'm not saying I'm right, but I can't do that, you know. And then again, we're going back to what Eric talked about earlier. You know, we have a choice. So it's interesting. I think like everything else, it's evolving and expanding, like everything else that we're getting familiar with, because we're all in kindergarten. But yeah, I think that you have to honor yourself. And you actually, what I just described is the energy of the comment you made yesterday on the show. You know, you weren't saying you didn't care for this guy. You weren't saying this or that. You said, hey, you know what? I got to do this for me. And you know, one last thing I'd add too is even though Morgan and I were coming from different ends of the spectrum, I would say she was very galactic and I was very organic. I understood and she understood from the very beginning, nothing had to be said or talked about. And I understood from a universal standpoint that whatever I was coming into, because it was so, like so many people were experiencing, so different, so new, so non-traditional, non-typical of our previous experiences, I knew that whatever, to stop worrying about it, don't put too much thought into it, experience it, be a part of it, grow it, expand it, and all that. Because whatever the universe has in store for me in this particular example is good or better than anything I could have in mind for myself, whether it's with her or someone else. And you know, we got to stay open. I mean, that's how our energy expands and thrives, regardless of what aspect of our life we're talking about. We've got to stay open. We got to stay open to everything. But I do believe that the universe knows our heart's desire, you know, and I think, you know, sometimes the humans just got to get out of the way. I think that's kind of part of what we're learning.
Yeah.
Thank you. So Geraldine, love to get you and your partner on sometime if you ever
Yeah,
want
I'll
to.
just quickly say one thing, and that is that there's a just to what Janie was saying, that there's a sort of dance that's played a bit between, I think, the divine masculine and the divine feminine, where there's a loving, there's a sort of the way the boundaries are imposed are in a loving way, and the divine masculine, what I really am seeing a lot more of is that reaction to it that also is with love. That's you know, I appreciate you pulling me up, or I appreciate you, you know, pulling me into line. And we do that a little bit.
Kicking my ass. Right?
Well, yeah, but it's
bit.
also done with, it's said with love, you know, it's like, what would I do without you?
Of course it is. Absolutely. That's a great point. And that really, I want to reiterate that, because that's a great point for men, because a lot of this feminine energy and knowing and awareness has been around since, you know, I know at least since about 2015 when you saw a lot of posts about it. But for the men, it hasn't. And one of the things that you know, that you just said that really stands out is, you know, him understanding that she's not criticizing him, that she's actually wants, and Morgan has said this to me many times. She hasn't had to say it to me in a while, you know, 3 or 4 months, I think. So I must be getting smarter. But that, in other words, she wants me to be the best that I can possibly be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if she says to me, you know, when you do that on the show, or, you know, you might want to comb your hair, or whatever the case may be, I'm being funny about it, but whatever it is, the old Todd would react, you know, and I might say something like, well, why don't you ever say something nice? Or I might say something like this or something like that, but it's all projection, until I was able to be open and say, well, wait a minute, maybe there's some truth to it, you know, whatever the case is. That's where the expansion comes from. And I think it's a difficult thing for the masculine, because they've been in charge, because they've had so much, well, they've been in charge, period. You know, that's all there is to it. I mean, that's all there is to it. Everything was set up for them to be in charge. I mean, and we can give countless examples. So I think that's a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Is there any other advice that you'd want to give your brothers and sisters? Anybody?
A couple of final things I want to say. One is that the message that I got coming back from Peru about the mission was to follow my intuition. It was a very strong one. And now I realize why it was. It's because things have to unfold. Like because we are co-creating, because we live with the, you know, distortion of free will, we're going to unfold this and create it as we go. So there's no, that it's too deep. If you come at it with some sort of preconceived notion, you're going to fall down. And that goes to what you're talking about in terms of attachment. And the last thing I want to say is, like, this community has been just a sent from the divine for me, because of I'm living, as I said, in a very egocentric environment, working in it. Finding community has been so important. So I just love, you know, listening to what you do, watching your shows. It's what you were guided to do. This is exactly why, like, bringing all of us together and giving us all a voice. So thank you.
Well, I'm half of it.
Thank you to you and Morgan.
I'm even now. No, I'm just the one that happens to be on the screen all the time. So Eric, what do you got? Do you have any parting comments you'd like to share with us? Anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, I think y'all have pretty much said it. I mean, it really does come back to being open. And, you know, what I've realized through the relationship part is I am more in my feminine than my wife was more in her masculine. And once you get into the Tantra and the Kundalini stuff, you find out if you're a female and you're wounded, then you start trying to take or grab or be in control of things, instead of, like Geraldine was talking about, listening to that intuition and allowing the guidance to come to you, allowing the healing to take place, allowing the partnership to come together. And I continue to be amazed by the programs that you do and the people that you interview, because even though a lot of it is the same story, like you said, it's different, but it's the same story. And, you know, just to hear that, you know, you've got hardships and it's hard doing what you're doing, when, you know, I think that's the big thing. There's this illusion out there to people, and it's hard for people to see a different path. But if you can be open to it, if you can listen to the other person and hear what their hardship is, and to hear what they're getting for guidance, or what might be a positive for them, then that allows us to come together. And like you said, you know, it's fun to have all these visions and have all these experiences, but the one thing that Spirit's always told me is to come together and have a conversation. And when you can't come together and have a conversation, and someone thinks you're criticizing them, when you're just trying to be open, and, like, you know, you're taking what she's saying, and you might have to hear it a couple of times, but then you're like, wait, that's really, I think that's the essence of what we all have to do, is just be open and listen and communicate.
Right on. Beautiful, man. I'm glad we did this. I'm really glad we did this. I'm looking forward to doing more of these and maybe doing one individually with each one of you. And, you know, Geraldine, maybe you partner and
We'll see.
whatever we can come up with. Kids, okay, no problem. I appreciate everybody. I appreciate you guys popping in. I appreciate the fact that you've come on and shared with us. So until the next time, and thank you for the love and support and contributions. And thank you for the kind words, all of you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.